Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to Mariner Mondays on Circling Seattle Sports here with Brittany and myself. My name is Charles. If you know me from Twitter, it is Charles. Um, I feel like each week we open the show and we talk about how, the Mariners aren't doing anything, or at least when we did the first episode ahead of the winter meetings, we anticipated them not doing anything. And it gets quieter each week. It is the 30th of December when you are going to be watching this. The Mariners, I don't think they did anything of notice over the past week besides tweeting their Hall of Fame cases for Ichiro Suzuki and Felix Hernandez. At least in that regard, I imagine Ichiro be unanimous. The voters can be weird. So, well, Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't unanimous, which is wild.
Yeah.
So I say that about Ichiro, but people can surprise me, right?
Yeah.
But Felix is, from everything I've read, he's had positive returns for his scenario. So that's nice. Good for Felix. I mean, I think
Yeah.
he should get in just considering how dominant he was. But anyway, we'll get into the state of the current Mariners, which, at least in terms of offense, kind of feels like what Felix got. Um, Brittany, our first topic of discussion today is how the Mariners missed out entirely, basically, on the first base market unless they magically land Pete Alonso, which feels like me playing baseball for the Mariners. Nearly impossible. Because last week we talked about a Josh Naylor trade, and I feel like mere hours after we talked about it, the Cleveland Guardians traded him to the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks seemed to be loading up after they signed Corbin Burns, which, hey, I mean, good for the Snakes. That'll be fun. That's going to be a really highly competitive division. Um, but that happened. Christian Walker signed with Houston. We talked about that last week. Paul Goldschmidt signed with New York. Carlos Santana, who we talked about as like a fallback, signed with Cleveland. Cleveland said, "We're getting rid of Josh Naylor. We're bringing Carlos Santana back." And if you missed out on it, I believe it was Ken Rosenthal reported that Carlos Santana was weighing his options between Seattle and Cleveland, and the Mariners actually offered Carlos more money and essentially a 2-year guaranteed deal. Santana had gone home to his Cleveland home to retrieve some things and decided that day that he was going to sign with the Guardians. I don't blame him, considering his family. It's closer to home. It's just a really bad look for the Mariners. I don't think anyone blames Carlos necessarily. It's just the situation in Seattle. It's more salt in the wound. It's like if you took a salt shaker and jammed it into the wound. Essentially, that's where we're at. Brittany,
Yeah.
um, I guess without going not safe for work, what are your thoughts on missing out on this market? Because this was kind of a scenario, a situation uh, where the Mariners wanted to upgrade. They talked about it. I feel like this was the case ever since the news of Ty France being placed on. I forgot what the official term was
Hmm.
because they weren't just DFAs. It was a specific
Hmm.
type of right. Um, you know, what are your thoughts on missing out on the first base market? Because we're at a point where it's looking like Luke Raley and maybe Justin Turner. Because I don't want to say that and then he'll
Yeah.
sign somewhere else, right? What I don't know. What do we think?
Yeah. You look at it now and it's you're crossing your fingers for Justin Turner, right? Which you maybe didn't think we'd be saying right now. I'm also not totally shocked that we're saying that right
No.
now, unfortunately. Yeah, certainly don't I blame Carlos Santana, and it sounds like the Mariners threw everything they kind of had at him. Good for him for getting 12 million. That's great at his age. I think my frustration is just in general with this team historically not seeming to have a pivot plan when the
Mm.
market doesn't develop in the manner that they are expecting or wanting it to. And we don't have enough inside knowledge or details, really. So it's all kind of just piecing together from the outside looking in. But from the outside looking in, it has seemed on many occasions that the Mariners have a plan and this is what they're going to do. And they outline it and then they miss out. And then it's like panic. We don't have a pivot plan. So it sounded like they were really banking on Carlos Santana coming back. I don't know that they have a plan B, or as Jerry calls it, a plan Z. And so again, they're backed into a corner. Here we are again. Uh, Pete Alonso is out there. The Mets reportedly offered him 3 years, 90 million, and he came back and said, "I want 175 to 200 million." So he won't be a Seattle Mariner. Sorry to break that to anybody. That's not going to happen. Yeah, exactly. So I they played the Major League Baseball played musical chairs with first baseman, and the Seattle Mariners were left without a chair, unfortunately. So we are looking at Justin Turner, which would be a win at this point. If you can bring him back, that would be a win. We know how much Cal and Luke Raley spoke about really valuing his leadership. Does he bring an offensive threat still in 2025? I don't know. I joked that we will probably hear at some point, if things continue this way, the front office say we have full confidence in Tyler Locklear, and that's the direction that they will pivot to. And Tyler Locklear may be a good major league piece at some point. I don't know that he's going to come in 2025 and play that role. Just looking back on the 16 games he had with the Mariners in 2024, he slashed 156, 224, 311. That is a 536 OPS. But the biggest thing for me with Locklear is a 40.8 K rate.
Ooh.
So that was granted in only 16 games, but that 40.8% strikeout rate didn't go down a whole lot when he was optioned back down to Tacoma. That was something that they said they wanted him to work on. And it was still in the high 20%. So Tyler Locklear, I hope, can be a contributor to the Seattle Mariners in the future. Can't be your opening day first baseman, platoon partner with Luke Raley. But that's where we're at, is having this conversation.
And I want to say because we did the Josh Naylor, and we did the Christian Walker, and we talked about generally the other first baseman available. There were folks who were like, "Well, what about Luke Raley? You know he can play there. I know that. I watched it. First of all, like I always, this is my own gripe, Brittany. So obviously you don't have to respond to it, but I hate the ones where it's like, well, don't you remember this and that, And I'm like, yes, I know more than that because I have to see it on a day to day basis. Like I am not a fan page. Respect to fan pages and to an extent, but come on. It's like, well, Luke can play first base, and I'm like, is he hitting against lefties? Someone's
So,
like, well, only certain pitchers, a certain number of pitchers are lefties. I'm like, yeah, but we're not playing for certains right now. You know,
yeah,
my biggest gripe has all this was supposed to be an upgrade situation, right?
yeah.
And to your point, and it kind of blends into our next point, and we'll see if I'm able to edit the little wrong way. The little I want to do the Brittany, do you remember the old sports center where they had the side ticker on?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying. We'll see if I can actually do it. I'm hoping to have everything on. It's gonna be to
I love,
your right. We'll see.
I love.
If not, I might forfeit and put on the bottom like we've been doing. But
Okay.
this they have backed themselves into a corner of their own volition. Like they probably had some plan that things were gonna fall into their favor, and they didn't have a pivot, like you said. And
Yeah,
now, and I don't want to get too into it because I want to talk more about the Luke Raley discourse.
yeah.
It's there was a report. I tuned into it just to hear things. I know John has been wrong about the Mariners before. Um, but I mean, it's something. We are essentially grasping for straws because this is how this organization has operated. Whether it is keeping things close to their chest at times or being cheap, like both of those things apply. John Heyman said that the Mariners were frustrated with the offers they've been hearing on Luis Castillo, and people are like, I think two things are true. One, you played yourself into a corner where teams know you are cheap and know that this is like your one avenue for upgrading, so they can kind of do what they want. It's supply and demand. The Mariners need the demand is hitting. and they do have from the rotation, but I don't imagine they want to trade any of their young guys. So teams can just ask stupid shit and be fine with it because they know they have what Seattle wants, and Seattle doesn't have any other option. Seattle can't go and say, okay, well, screw it, we'll just pay Pete Alonso, right? If that was the case, they'd have done it. We would be making edits about Pete Alonso right now. Like I'd have used the pictures from that series where the Mariners swept the Mets here in Seattle. I would have done it already. And the other thing was there was discourse about how good Luis Castillo is and this and that. And I'm like, the bottom line is that he is cheaper and has been better than the starting pitchers who have signed in free agency already. Let's
Yeah.
not kid ourselves, right?
Yep.
People are like, oh well, he's gonna fall off a cliff. I'm like, that's I just people just find negativity in anything. Um, I just get tired of arguing with, rednecks on Twitter. I just
Unless his injury is more severe and lingered more than we know that his
sure.
injury at the end of the year. Um, sure, he's at the age where he will slow down a lot, and he can slow down and still be an incredibly
Yes.
strong rotation piece,
I mean,
a
he's
two
better
or
than
three, and maybe a one in a lot of rotations. So,
yeah, that's what I was my point was he's gonna be better than the options that these teams already have, that want him. So I'm just like, we're just being picky. The Red Sox and their fans are overvaluing what Tristan Casas is. You know, could have been an all-star. Josh Rojas could have won a Gold Glove with how he played,
yeah.
and could have been an all-star if we took his like May, and could have been. We can play these fantasy games all we want. I could have hair again, and I could be playing for the Seattle Mariners and not recording this right now, and I could be the first baseman, that they need. But I played center field more. Sorry, Julio. Bump over. I just, I think it is fair that they've backed themselves into a corner, which we'll talk about, but also fair that teams are offering them bullshit. George Kirby
Completely.
or Logan Gilbert for Alec Bohm is bullshit.
Yeah.
I hope Philly fans know that, Tristan Casas 1-for-1 for Luis Castillo is bullshit. Oh God, what else was there? There were a few other ones that were ridiculous that we talked about in the first episode, but they're ridiculous. So I understand why the Mariners are frustrated, but the other thing can be true that they created that frustration in the first place. Um,
Bingo.
Luke Rayleigh
Yeah.
looks fine.
You want to talk about how he hit against lefties, since that seems to be the
Uh, people just like to throw that out, and I'm like, well, that's fine, but as you've seen with the Mariners, those I don't like the it's only a certain number of pitchers in the league are lefties. That is fine. I understand that part. That is true, but at least in my opinion, when the Mariners the last what 5 4 of the last 5 years they've missed the playoffs by a game, right? I could be wrong off a year or two. You get the point, right?
basically.
Every I'm going to try to not be super sweary. Every game matters here. So, you've got a guy who's unplayable, then it becomes what? Are we forcing, say, we do get to the nightmare scenario where Tyler Locklear is the other part of your platoon. Is he going to be the one hitting against lefties,
Yeah.
after he's already had a bad strikeout rate anyway? Right? Is it going to be Dylan Moore, who you're probably already going to be playing at second base because you can't afford anybody else or you're not affording anybody else? And then a guy who's your super utility man, so you burn him out even more. Not to, wordplay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you get what I'm saying here? I don't, I understand people trying to be like, don't forget about Luke Ray. I love the guy. He's great. Brittany and I both, I like, from my reports and subject she'd play off of it, and then on her own volition, would talk about Luke Rayleigh and what he brings as a competitor, as a leader, as an athlete, right? What he meant to the clubhouse with Caleb John. You know, I want this guy on my team, yes, but when I said this throughout the season last year, Luke Rayleigh could arguably be your first player off the bench, not necessarily a starter. He should be your Dylan Moore. You've got a lot of great guys who should be first off the bench for a contending team, but
Yeah.
you're making them play start minutes, not as starting, starting roles, right? I'm I don't know. I've been
Yeah,
yapping. I'm gonna look at lefty numbers I'll let
I,
you
I
take
got
it.
him. I got him pulled up. He
Okay.
slashed 189, 259, 311 against lefties in 2024. That is a 570 OPS with a 30.5% strikeout rate. That doesn't work. I don't care how many lefties a year you face. That doesn't work for your everyday starting first baseman. Now, granted, you do have Perry Hill. He's not a very solid defensive first baseman either. I think that's important to remember. And he'll admit that himself. He beat himself up bad and deservedly so after an error he made towards the end of the year that cost the Mariners a game. And I know you have Perry Hill, but if you are late in a game and you need a solid defender at first base, you don't feel great running Rayleigh out there.
No, the biggest thing and why I stood up, you're probably like, what's he doing now? Um, eight with lookout landing, and we like to watch the Perry Hill first base, well, the Perry Hill
Mm,
infield drills, right?
yeah.
And what's always was fascinating to me was Luke Raley throws really weird. You ever watch that? His arms out here, and he's kind of like he's all arms. Like you'll notice
Yeah.
how he
Well, he
runs. That
throws
was
like
a
an
big
outfielder.
well,
He's
yeah, that
long
would
and
make
throws
sense.
like an outfielder to a
Yes,
degree.
he's just all arms, and it was odd
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, we've talked about it too, where I think we talked about this in the first episode, where if you were to acquire an infielder, I'm like, I don't care, let Perry Hill work with him. Perry Hill spent a lot of time working with Luke Raley. I mean, he only played, I say only because he played more at left field, but he played 41 games at first base last year. Um, I don't know. I mean, he spent all year with Perry anyway, and spring training. So, like, if he didn't learn throughout the course of a year, would it take a year? I don't know. Like, so I
I
don't know.
again, like he certainly can be just fine over there with under Perry Hill's tutelage. But when you get late in games, close games, and you want a
Yeah.
defensive replacement because you need to make sure that that play at first base is made because you're going into extra innings or whatever, that you don't feel great about having Rayleigh over there. That's not your gold glove first base, gonna pick anything and everything like you would feel with Carlos Santana. You feel really good running Carlos Santana out there in the 11th inning, in the 12th inning, knowing he's going to pick and stop everything. So defense again isn't as much of an issue that we need to look at as offense.
Sure.
And I think it's important to remember that Luke Raley is relatively young in the league too. I was very pleasantly surprised that he had the year that he did last year because the narrative around him kind of was that 2023 his season
Oh,
with
yeah.
the Tampa Bay Rays was maybe a fluke and um, maybe not the actual norm for him. He didn't repeat his 2023 season that he had with the Rays, but he did really well last year and was very solid. Uh, he has 2 solid years in Major League Baseball. I think you said it really well. First guy off your bench or a fourth outfielder.
Yep.
If you're a contending team, Luke Raley shouldn't be your everyday starting first baseman.
Oh, and I'm all for the cool stories where, maybe he somehow turns into a first baseman. Those happen. They're rare, obviously, because that's how they
Absolutely.
become those big stories. But,
Hmm.
I would love for us to talk. We'll do this midseason, right? And we're like, wow,
Yeah.
Luke Raley, he's capable. He talked to the left-handed hitting fairy, and now he can do that. And, you know, but, again, I want to state this because it was such a thing whether it was Twitter or BlueSky or Threads or on YouTube, it was like, what about Luke Rayleigh? I'm like, yes, I know he's on the depth chart. Like I can read. Ah,
And they need to
it
have exactly. It would be
could
great to
have
have
been
this
better.
conversation mid-season and be saying, yeah, he's raking against lefties. Like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, that would be great. But it is their job to have a better plan than that and not count
Yes,
on the lefty fairy to show
that
up.
was the point. Yeah, that was my whole point with it. Because we get to Dylan Moore second base and Austin Shenton
Yeah.
third base, and then we're like, okay, we're playing like quad A infield, with JP Crawford. It's funny. I want to look at it because in the organization, it's at least on the MLB website, the depth chart at first base is Luke Raley, Dylan Moore, and Austin Shenton, which I kind of disagree with that. But yeah, I want to go back to the defensive part because at least currently, say you really pissed off God, and so you don't get Justin Turner, you know, and you have to do the statement, we believe in Tyler Locklear. Don't get me wrong, I remember when he was called up, the hope was that he was the future at first base,
Yeah.
you know, and he could still be that.
Yep.
When Jared Kelenic was here, and I really wanted to believe in Jared. I made the point. I was like, Mike Trout got sit down. He bounced in the beginning of his career. There are guys who bounce. Um, but at least defensively, it's like I look at this depth chart, right? At least of what's currently on the roster. It's Luke Raley. Say this scenario, Dylan Morris playing second base. It's Luke Raley, um, God, Tyler Locklear, he's been fine. However, his defense, he was fine, I think. I don't remember. I knew he needed work. He made a
He
few
did need
mistakes.
work. He took significant steps.
Good. Yeah. Okay. I remember I think I remember when he first came up, I was like, oh boy, he needs to spend some more time with Pearl. But that, and then it's funny because I would always record this when I saw it because I knew one, it would get people talking for lack of better words. And two, it was just funny to me. Mitch Garver has taken practices
At
at
first.
first base. And I think at times with Minnesota, he did play first base.
He
So
did. Yeah. I that actually, and you and I didn't chat about this beforehand, but I did actually take a little dive into that because I was wondering about that as well. And maybe if you brought in a legitimate backup catcher and Garver has a bounce back, that's a realistic
sure. Yeah.
option.
Like that's a good point because I was gonna say like in an ideal world you don't stress his body out enough so he could handle hey maybe you do platoon him and Luke if we're not adding Justin Turner even Justin Turner I was gonna add that into the conversation like even if you add Justin Turner he's fine but there were moments last year where he didn't necessarily make the plays he should at first,
Definitely.
and that just
Definitely.
goes
Yeah.
back to him not playing super full time,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah, the let's wrap up. Let's put a bow on the first base market. That is your best case scenario, at least in terms of realism, is Justin Turner. Because if best case scenario was it, we would be looking at Peter Morgan Alonso. Um, because yeah, I mean, the first base market, and we'll go down the list again, is Pete Alonso, Anthony Rizzo, which I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to necessarily. I don't know. I mean, it's something. Josh
The
Bell.
yeah,
Hmm.
continue.
Oh, Josh Bell, old friend Ty France, who there's no way Jerry would eat cow and bring him back. Joey Gallo, Jose Abreu, Ilieski Gurriel. Sorry, I did that even talking to Brittany earlier. Rowdy Tellez. Tell
Yeah,
me,
the one interesting name for me is Anthony Rizzo. He uh had a run-in with Fernando Tatis Jr. in 2023 and had a bad ended up getting a bad concussion from it that
oh,
knocked him out
yes,
for the
yes.
remainder of that season. He has not bounced back since that happened. And he had a
Mm,
different injury last year, but even before that injury, in 2024, he was struggling. He just didn't look like the same Anthony Rizzo. I'm a huge Rizzo fan. I loved him on the Cubs. If he wore a Mariner jersey, yes, I would admittedly be very stoked and happy and would probably buy one. But he has not proven that he ever really recovered from that concussion. That he lost, I want to say 2 months, 2.5 months.
it was a while.
Yeah, it was a very serious thing. They went into the the medicals of how he felt like he was hungover every single day and he was seeing
Oh,
doubles of everything and
that's
just
not
sounded really
good.
bad. So
All right. I
There are
mean,
your options.
I know we're not like a general MLB show, but I mean, he's 35. I mean, he's won a World Series. If it's that bad and it's still happening, I'd just be done, dude. Like,
Yeah.
he's made a lot of money anyway.
Yeah, he
I didn't
has.
realize he was getting paid 20 million AAV by the Yankees.
Mhm.
Nice, man. Yeah. I don't, oh, Jesus. Yeah, I didn't know that stuff about his concussion. Jeez. I knew it a long time. I just didn't know how, like, the effects. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's not directly related, but the Thunderbirds and the Thunderbirds, obviously, those are kids that are younger than me. Well, they're usually younger than 20. Owen Boucher, he had a really bad concussion. He just stopped. He's not playing hockey. He's done.
Yeah.
And that's like,
It's so
Canadians
rough.
hockey's life. Yeah. So, I mean, that shit's serious. I mean,
It
obviously, we
is.
know about
Yeah.
concussions and how serious they are, but just puts it into perspective. Yeah, I mean, and I talked about it during the first base part, but if we can add to it more, but backing themselves into a corner, it's very rough.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, how about the Zems?
Oh, I'm excited.
I know. Where are you going to watch all those away games, though?
Away games. Huh. I was thinking of coming here since, after all, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports.
I love that idea. Hope to see y'all here. Yeah, that's good. Otherwise, I would have been like going really slow for the sip too. Yeah. So you like that beer?
I love this beer.
What's it called?
Rainy season.
Who's it named after?
Seattle Rain FC. Man, that's good. Doesn't even taste like beer.
I know. Watch out, you're gonna be drunk by the end of it.
Ooh. I'm gonna clink and I'm just gonna do it too hard.
Do one more time?
One more time?
Wait, hold on. Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
That, I don't know. Wait,
You said it was bad luck.
Circling Seattle Sports and Rough and Tumble. It's too hard to like, we just need to do the clink.
I like that one though. Actually, I could really hear
I think we got it.
Yeah, we got enough now. We're gonna be really drunk. We're like sucked down a
pretty
pint.
much finished your beer.
I know.
I was, yeah. Ooh.
Yes, isn't that
You start there, go.
Charles, you like this?
Oh, I love this. This
Yeah.
is my favorite thing here.
What's it
To drink.
called? What's it called?
Rainy season.
Rainy season. Who's it after?
Seattle Rain FC.
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, we can do that again.
Yeah.
You want to wait till the song comes on? And then
Well, this is different,
Yeah, this
right?
is different. You like that beer?
I love this beer.
Are you old enough?
A year old enough, yes.
Start over. You're
My
so,
youthful glow.
look at that. So close.
I remember watching the game that Kelsey set that record, and I think I was trying to talk to my dad, and he was like, "Shut up! This is really important." He told me to shut up. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, did you see Brittany Griner's book's coming out?
Is it not out yet?
No, May 7th.
Oh, okay. Oh, Asia's book came out,
Yeah.
and she did an audio
We
book
should
too.
make this a regular thing where you and I just like giving each other
Sitting.
shit.
Regular series. We'll oh, they're at fucking halftime.
Okay. How excited are you for March Madness?
Oh God.
I'm so excited.
Oh wait. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
What are you guys doing for March Madness?
We'll be lying around the block is what we'll be. Just during the games. So come other times. Don't think it's always like that.
It's not. It's like this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is better than.
Yeah, and we can, like, when you have events
Oh, yeah,
and
we
shit
could have,
you want to
like-
spur up, we can,
Okay.
like, you know, obviously dependent on availability, we can do
No,
shit.
we can totally like pick up a game or two. Yeah, or whatever. All
Yeah,
of them.
like whenever.
March Madness at Rough and Tumble.
Yeah. And of
Well,
course.
especially if Wazoo's in. Well, Washington teams.
I know. I love
We're
Eladine,
egalitarian here. We're about equality, okay?
Sure. I mean, I had to cover that Charlize, the one of the other nominees for Women's Sports Star.
Oh,
Was
yeah,
Wazoo.
yeah.
God damn it. Why are we at halftime? Horrible.
Okay, we don't need to. Let's just pretend we're watching.
They do like replays.
Yeah. And all we're doing is toasting.
I'm 24. That's the age that people ask me about.
I'm not going to tell you what I think.
What do you think?
Don't do that. Don't hit that.
I'm recording that one.
But before the video, it's just gonna play that like 10 times. How old do you think I am? Or no, what?
I would go with 27, 28,
That's fine. The three
22.
the three guesses that I got most consistently are 24, 28, and 30. And I
I
was
can
like,
see all of those.
wow. Are you old enough? Fucking guy. Ooh.
We should do an event with Urban Family too. Because we're going to keep collabing with them
Good.
on rain-themed beer.
There's gonna be another one? What? This is my favorite.
No. Well, but it's wintry. So we're going to go with springy. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Do we have enough to work
It's like a
with?
big belly.
I know.